Imagine you're standing in the middle of a dry African savanna. It's 1 million years ago. Lightning strikes a dead tree 50 feet away. It explodes into flames. Every animal within half a mile runs. Deer, antelope, baboons, all sprinting away from the fire as fast as they can. But one small group of early humans doesn't run. They stop, they stare, and one of them takes a step closer. That moment, that single, irrational, curious step toward the flames instead of away from them may be the most important thing any human ancestor ever did. Because fire didn't just keep us warm. It didn't just cook our food. Fire is the reason you exist at all. And for hundreds of thousands of years, we had absolutely no idea how to make it ourselves. So how did it actually start? And how did we go from terrified witnesses to the only species on Earth that controls fire? Let's start with what we actually know. For a long time, scientists assumed early humans discovered fire roughly 400,000 years ago. That was the conservative estimate. Then, in 2012, a team of archaeologists excavating Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa found something that changed the timeline completely. Burned bones and plant ash buried in sediment layers dating back 1 million years. Not from a wildfire. The burn patterns were too concentrated, too controlled. Something was maintaining a flame inside that cave deliberately 1 million years ago. The species responsible wasn't even Homo sapiens. It was Homo erectus, our ancestor, a creature with a brain roughly 2/3 the size of yours. No language as we understand it, no written knowledge, no teacher to explain what fire was, and somehow they figured it out. But here's the thing almost nobody talks about. They didn't invent fire, they stole it. The earliest use of fire by humans wasn't making a spark with 2 sticks. That came much, much later. The first humans who used fire were collectors. When lightning struck and a tree caught, when a volcanic vent set dry grass alight, when a meteor impact started a blaze. Early humans watched the aftermath, and at some point, one of them did something extraordinary. They carried an ember back to their group. Think about what that took. You have to get close enough to pick up a burning branch without dying. You have to carry it somehow without burning yourself. You have to feed it, add wood, protect it from rain, blow on it gently to keep it alive. And you have to do all of this with no understanding of chemistry, no concept of oxygen, no framework for what fire even is. Just instinct, observation, and an almost insane willingness to touch something that hurt you. Anthropologists call this fire tending, and it was its own skill entirely separate from fire making. For potentially hundreds of thousands of years, human groups kept fire alive the way you'd keep a pet. You protected it, you fed it, you carried it with you when you moved. If it died, you had to find a new one, which sometimes meant following smoke on the horizon for days. And the groups that managed to keep fire alive, they had an enormous advantage. A campfire at night does something almost magical to a predator's brain. It's hardwired. Lions, hyenas, leopards, the apex predators of the African savanna, will not enter firelight. It's not learned behavior, it's instinct. Which means the moment early humans had a fire burning at the entrance of their camp, they went from potential prey to something untouchable after dark. Before fire, when the sun went down, you found the deepest part of whatever shelter you could, and you stayed completely still. Movement meant noise. Noise meant death. You didn't sleep well. You didn't think about tomorrow. You survived. After fire, the night belonged to you. You had warmth, you had light, you had 3 to 4 extra hours every single night that no other creature on Earth was using productively. And humans, being humans, filled those hours with exactly what you'd expect. They talked, they planned, they made tools, they told stories. There's a direct line between a campfire 1 million years ago and every piece of culture that has ever existed. Theater, religion, music, philosophy, all of it traces back to humans sitting around a fire in the dark, safe for the first time, with nothing to do but think. But fire did something even more fundamental than that. It changed what we ate. Raw meat is hard to chew and harder to digest. The human gut has to work enormously hard to extract calories from uncooked food. Cooking breaks down the tough fibers in meat and vegetables before they even enter your body. It kills parasites, it makes food safer, and critically, it releases far more calories from the same amount of food. Harvard primatologist Richard Wrangham spent decades studying this. His conclusion was stark. Cooking didn't just feed us better, it physically changed us. Once our ancestors started cooking regularly, they needed smaller guts to process the same amount of food. And when you shrink the gut, something has to grow to compensate, because the body is always balancing its energy budget. The brain grew. Human brains are extraordinarily expensive organs. They consume roughly 20% of your body's total energy while making up only 2% of your body weight. Before cooking, your ancestors simply couldn't afford a brain this size. After cooking, suddenly they could. The caloric surplus that came from cooked food funded the expansion of the very organ that would eventually figure out how to build cities, compose symphonies, and land on the moon. Fire didn't just keep early humans alive, it built the machine they used to become human. But there was still the problem of making it. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans were entirely dependent on finding fire, not creating it. If your group's flame died and there was no lightning storm, no volcanic activity, no forest fire within reach, you were simply without fire, which could be catastrophic. Then, at some point, someone noticed something. Flint, the hard, dark stone that prehistoric humans were already using to make cutting tools, produced sparks when struck against iron pyrite. Not always, not reliably. But sometimes, when the angle was right and the strike was sharp, a tiny orange spark would fly. And if that spark landed on the right dry material, powdered fungus, fine grass fiber, dried moss, it would catch. We don't know who made this connection first. We don't know what they thought in that moment. But we know it happened because by around 400,000 years ago, the archaeological record shows something new. Hearths that appear far from any obvious natural fire source. Tools that show wear patterns consistent with striking flint against pyrite repeatedly. Human groups living in climates where natural fire would be rare, surviving winters that would be impossible without the ability to produce flame on demand. They cracked it. And once humans could make fire rather than just find it, everything accelerated. You could move into colder climates. You could harden wooden spear tips in flame. You could use fire to drive animals off cliffs during hunts. You could fire clay into permanent containers for storing water and food. You could clear land. You could signal to other groups across distances. Fire wasn't just a tool. It was a multiplier that made every other tool and skill more powerful. There's a reason almost every ancient culture on Earth has a myth about fire being stolen or gifted from gods. Prometheus in Greece, Maui in Polynesia, Coyote in Native American traditions. Fire in every corner of the world felt so transformative, so world-changing, that ancient peoples couldn't believe a human had simply figured it out. But they did. One curious ancestor, 1 million years ago, took a step toward the flames instead of away from them. And that single step changed what it meant to be alive on this planet. You use fire every day. Every meal you cook, every light you switch on, every engine that moves you from place to place. All of it runs on the same principle that Homo erectus figured out in a cave in South Africa 1 million years before you were born. We didn't discover fire, we chose it, and that choice made us everything we are.